You mentioned Montreal a couple times, and we talked about the status as Canada's largest company in the intro. I wanted to know if you could give us some insight into business and economics in Canada right now.
Yeah, the main thing that I had in mind here was
not when to talk about t-shirts.
When you guys became the largest company by market cap this year, we had looked earlier in the year. I had looked at this list and I saw Shopify at number 2, and I was like, wow, it's the second biggest company in Canada. That's insane. And then looking at it more recently, I was going through the list and I was like, oh my God, bank, energy company, bank. So I wanted to get a feel for your optimism for entrepreneurship in Canada specifically, because I think Canada has been in a rough economic spot in the past few years, from talking to friends, from looking at election results, all of these things, right? And I wanted to get your optimistic take on this, which I heard you're pretty bullish on Canada as a place to start a business. And I wanted to get your feelings on that.
Sure. Well, first of all, let's just sort of contextualize. If you look at the top 10 largest companies by market cap in Canada, other than Shopify, the second youngest one is TD Bank in 1956, I think. That's number 2.
That's crazy.
Okay, so I am optimistic. I was born in Canada, but I did not grow up here. I grew up in South Florida. I say that only to provide some insight into, I'm choosing to live here. Right. I can live at this stage anywhere in the world. My wife and I, Toby and I, were both living in Ottawa for the last 20 years or so. I moved to Ottawa for law school. He moved to Ottawa because he met a girl who was now his wife. We both found ourselves in Ottawa, and we lived there for the last 20 years. And then sort of post-pandemic, we both decided we wanted to leave Ottawa. He wants to come to Toronto. And I was thinking about Miami, New York. Spend a lot of time in New York City. I ended up picking Montreal because, frankly, it's my favorite city on the planet. It's my wife's favorite city on the planet. We both went to McGill for undergrad. So I very intentionally selected to stay in Canada, and very intentionally selected Montreal, which I just think is the most entrepreneurial, cultural, interesting city I've ever been to. And I've been there now for 2 years. We've been living in Montreal for 2 years. It is one of the best decisions I've ever made. What they call the joie de vivre, the joy of life quotient there is unlike anything I've experienced anywhere in North America. So why am I optimistic in Canada? Well, first of all, I do think, though, that I like the culture here, but that's not really the reason why I've stayed here. I think Canada suffers this tall poppy syndrome. People talk about it, but I don't think we fully realize it. If you look at companies that are built here, traditionally, the path that these companies take, particularly technology companies, is they raise some money from venture capitalists or private equity funds, or in some cases, angel investors, which means they're basically committing that at some point they're going to have some sort of exit, either an IPO or they're going to get acquired. They tend to take the acquired route more than the IPO route. That's the reason why you don't see a lot of Canadian publicly traded technology companies. And the ones that do go public, the examples we have are like RIM, like BlackBerry and Nortel. In fact, one of the things I lament the most is if you walk into any bookstore in Canada and you ask the clerk to show you some books on RIM or Nortel, it's like a row of the demise of BlackBerry, losing the signal. This is a cautionary. There's not a single book that talks about what BlackBerry did, which is it created the smartphone industry, or what Nortel did. There's no books on Alain Bouchard, who created Couche-Tard. There's no books on Sam Bronfman, who created Seagram's. The story of Chip Wilson and Lululemon is often not a very positive one, even though what Chip built, you can say what you want about Chip, but what he built is incredibly inspiring. Sure. I mean, he created a new category. So I think this tall poppy syndrome here, it does not serve us and is not helpful. And there's a couple things I think we can fix here. One, I think, is at the government level. I mean, you mentioned that, that I care a lot about this topic. I was very vocal the last few weeks. The Canadian budget comes out today, but I wrote a memo about how basically to improve SHRED, SRED. SHRED is a program the federal government has where they give out $5 billion with a B every year to technology companies that are doing R&D research. It turns out that 80% of people that are filing applications to get SHRED use a consultant because it's so complicated. So what's the result of that? 20 to 30% of the $5 billion it gets out, it goes to the consultants.
Right. Yeah.
So that doesn't make sense. So we
think about the consultants.
We don't want to
leave the consultants in the street.
I mean, sorry about the consultants, but consultants should add value. That to me, it's adding value, but it shouldn't be value add that should exist.
No, I understand.
The second thing is education. I don't think we're teaching students to consider entrepreneurship as a viable career option, which to me is so sad. Like, you know, you get this list in 4th grade. It's like doctor, lawyer, accountant, magician, singer, actor, but entrepreneurship is never on the list. So I think that's part of it. And maybe kind of the last one is we have to just celebrate our own. We have to become champions for all of us. Like, you know, I just met you guys today, but I've been talking about Lemonade Stand for a while, but I think what you're doing is really compelling. And anyone that talks to me about like small business podcasts or shows that create great content, I bring you up as an example of someone that I think a group that's doing things really well. They do that well in the US. They they sell each other all the time. We don't have to be like the Americans. But this idea of grow big, but if you grow too big, your head gets chopped off a la, tall poppy. I don't think it's working for us. Here's the good news. I've personally had more engagement with the government in the last 6 months than I have in the last 6 years. They seem to want to listen. We'll see what happens in terms of the results. The second thing is I see companies like Ada and League and Wealthsimple and Lightspeed and Super.com and Clio in Vancouver. And I'm seeing all these incredible Canadian companies that are getting really big. And there's an appetite to stay independent, not get acquired. So I'm really excited by that. And third, if you think about funding, the best investors on the planet, from Silicon Valley to London, New York, California, wherever they're from, they're agnostic to geography. They're investing in the best companies. And a lot of those investment dollars are coming here to Canada. I mean, Wealthsimple, I think, just raised at $8 billion valuation. Clio is at $1 billion valuation. Like, we're beginning to see kind of this new version of Canadian capitalism. And I think it's exciting and it's driven by entrepreneurs.
That's really cool to hear. I'm Canadian myself. So I think this is a story that you don't hear from Canada very often, which is that there's a lot of light at the end of the tunnel right now, a positive future to look towards. I think that's
if Shopify plays the role of role model because of our size, that's cool.